Hello everyone, welcome to our coronavirus disaster kit. It is truly a challenging time we are in right now. Our group has worked hard to create this kit that hopefully help us better understand the phenomena happening during this pandemic right now. So we have chosen a topic that we believe is very relevant to our current situation, and that is the shortage of certain supplies. So how did this shortage happen, and what is the real reason behind? That is what we're gonna try to explore and analyze today. So we argue that the empty shelves phenomenon, so like when you walked into a store, you see all these empty shelves of supplies that you can't get for days. We think that this phenomenon reveals the crack inside of the global supply chain, furthermore unraveling the dependency capitalism has on the global south. So our project consists 6 parts. The first part is designed by Jiaxing Ma, which provides us a background information on the development of the global supply chain. And then we're going to part 2 with Justin. He's going to introduce us the interconnectedness between the global north and south. And then part 3, Jolene's going to tell us about China's nationalization of N95 masks as a case study to help us better understand this current situation. And then part 4, Jiaxing Ma again, he's going to tell us about the policy comparison between the US and China. Part 5, by Essay, he's going to tell us about his prediction of the future of global supply chain. And then at the very end of our presentation, we're presenting a mini interview collection of public opinions. So we interviewed a variety of audience in terms of their jobs to provide a multifaceted perspectives on this issue. So let's get started and welcome Jasima.
Hi, everyone. I just want to briefly talk about the global supply chain and how it originated at the first place and its development history. As I noted, the developmental history can be concluded into 3 parts: the expansion of the transport infrastructure, the innovation of transportation technology, and the implementation of logistics systems. And the expansion of transport infrastructure and logistics system contribute to the emergence of flexible supply chain in a way which links the distribution, global production networks, global outsourcing, and subcontracting together to serve the need of the capitalism. And for the logistical system and this ideology, it started booming in the 1960s and 1970s, where they think such kind of knowledge, ideology can serve the demand of the capitalist to secure the highest profit margins possibly. And according to the data provided by the U.S. International Trade Commission, Chinese goods represent 16.1% of all U.S. imports compared to 6.5% in 1996 and are projected to increase by 5.5% every year between 2020 and 2030. And thus, the expansion of global supply chain help to contribute to the phenomenon that firms starting to turn themselves into transnational corporations that associate with offshoring and subcontracting, so that like firms can move their low cost and low technology production into the global south, where there is massive surplus of massive surplus labor. So it becomes the tool for the capitalists to penetrate the economic system of the global south, so they can continue to extract more resources and trap global south into this kind of loop that global south cannot escape from. And we can see, we can visualize that China during this past decade becomes the factory of the world, where massive production is manufactured in China. As for the coronavirus, the the outbreak of coronavirus provides significant damage to the production in China, since China issued the stay-at-home order and suspend major economic and production activities. And it eventually led to the shutdown of the global supply chain, where major production source was removed from the supply chain. And when the coronavirus finally outbreak in the global north, the pandemic drove the public to accumulate goods such as much as possible where there is not much on the supply end. For instance, the shortage of medical supplies such as medical masks, gloves, and commodities such as toilet papers. And those kind of shortage make the public suffer more during the pandemic. And in the following section, Justin will further investigate the interconnectedness between the global north and the global south and how they participate in the global supply chain.
The interconnectedness between the global north and the global south. In the readings, the mercantilism of neocolonialism, we can see how the global north can keep richer than the global south, because there was two processes by which capitalism in the global north continue using keep earning profit from the south countries. Let the global south to make the raw materials, and the response for the processing. So after that, the capitalism in the north part sells the commodities by lower price to the local residents, but this sell export back to the south part by raising higher prices. This whole process seems like continuing round circle, which global north always earning much more profits, where the southern part are losing money. Nkrumah stated that on the economic front, a strong factor favoring Western monopolies in acting against the developing the world is international capital's control of the world market. And there have some database from the 1951 to the 1961 without taking the oil into consideration. The general level of prices for the primary products by 33.1%, while the price of manufactured goods raised up to 3.5%. Considering about the economic causes, this is how developed countries control the developing country in such a good and smart ways. So due to the inequalities, during the week 6 lecture, we can see the Professor Snowden said the people in poorer country know that they need to industrialize their countries in order to develop it, but they don't have the capital to build the industry. So they borrow the money from the north part, and then because the poverty is the southern country cannot pay the money back to the north, therefore they just sell the cheaper labor to the north. And then the David McNally also state the capitalism is a system of market compulsion in which laborers are compelled by the threat of hunger and poverty to sell their labor to an employer. So this phenomenon causes the rich is getting richer and the poor to stay in poverty, which is a vicious circle. So and also there is an imbalance of the supply chain. Um, During this hard period, the transportation system were temporary closed, and the raw material produced in the south part could not be transported to the north part for processing. So this situation lead the southern part uh, cannot export, while the north part lose supply of all the raw materials. So we can see this phenomenon lead to the paralysis and the imbalance of the global supply chain, directly affect the economic development of both southern and the northern parts. On the other hand, the America's markets and the industrial suddenly have a shortage of toilet paper and tissues, something like Jashin said. And why did it happen? It's like there are really simple reasons. The residents have more demand because they have more demands on those commodities, but the industries cannot supply enough to the inventory, while the customers demands increasing rapidly. This is kind of like a situation that a lot of countries are meeting with. Like, for example, China is getting harder to import and export, although the country is back to the normal. But compared to the import and export between China and America, Scott Tong said, as far as buying American goods, China is way off tracking in terms of import targets. Beijing agreed to in a trade deal with Washington. Of course, those pandemic slammed both economics, but already President Donald Trump is threatening to kill the deal to raise more tariffs. And the two countries plan to meet on trade issues next week. And according to that information, there's still a big issue between the import and export between America and China, which is causes the supply chain is getting even worse. Although China has been already controlled the outbreak of the coronavirus, but from the Tong's database, the import picture of China still looked pretty bad. So like until May 7th, the decrease in 14% about the import. So Tom points out the U.S. and China deals has a target, and the China buys an average of 12 billions in American goods each month. But due to the temporary imbalance of the supply chain, the countries could not have the normal trades, which has led to a sharp decline in the capitalist economic development. So we can see the supply chain is getting worse, but I think it will be get there in the future. The next part, Jolene will say analysis study case of about N95.
Okay, so in my part, I'm discussing how nationalism experts face emergency public health issues and how to deal with them. So in China, COVID-19 broke out in the mid-January, and N95 and other masks become strict materials. So this means that masks are needed in all parts of in China. So in early February, because of the large demand for the masks, Chinese institutions and the mask suppliers began to buy masks from another country. So although this mask factory was focused to close and the domestic mask production to draft signature, the production workshop can be restarted with the help of government. So finally, in the early March, and China mask production completed was restored by 30%. So by the end of the March, the domestic demand for masks had basically been realized, and it began to provide assistance to other countries. So this time, before and after, this is only like 1 month. So we think this example shows that like the nationalism production can not only resume the repaired certainlism production of masks. Also, it has a good scheduling space when responding to emergencies. So that's it. Thank you. Next.
During the pandemic, there's two of the biggest economic sectors in the world, the United States and the China, both established new policy to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, the United States established Defense Production Act, known as the DPA, to prioritize and allocate health and medical resources to fight against the spread of COVID-19. And it specifically asked to compare big corporations such as the General Motors, 3M, and General Electric Company to make mass production of the medical supplies such as ventilators and N95 masks. And comparing these two policies, the the Defense Production Act in the United States and the nationalism of medical and pharmaceutical production in China. These two policies are similar in terms of their regulating export of medical supplies and for domestic use only to fight for their own problem. However, it can be valued as a dismantlement of the global supply chain, since the major exporter China decided to nationalize its medical supplies. However, unlike the United States, China has a capacity and leverage to sustain its demand of medical supplies. The medical infrastructure China has, like as well as its one-party political circumstances, could guarantee them to meet their own domestic demand in a short period of time. As for the United States, the privatizing of the healthcare system and lack of infrastructure that capable of mass producing made the United States suffer much more worse than China do. Thus, two major importers in the global north, such as the United States and European Union, and how they will adjust to fit into the new global supply chain is worth noting in the future.
My part? Okay, so my part is about future prediction of global supply chain. First of all, the number of infection and casualties increasing, posing a significant challenge since it can lead to the stability of the situation. Opening the economy in such a tough time can lead to more serve conditions than is being experienced right now. Second, most of the countries in the global south have restricted movement in and from their border, making it challenging to supply to raw material Besides, the labor supply is also a great challenge since most of the workers had returned their home country have the mass layout that took place when Corona-19 seriously hit the globe. The supply chain is likely to face the significant challenges that can make it remain broken for long. Therefore, the global north needs to find an alternative to get their supplies rather than depending on supplies from the global south, which cannot be economically sound. Next page. So my answer is the supply chain will be fixed by AI. Using AI, organization can transform unstructured real-time data into insights that help predict failures and vulnerabilities and provide short-term visibility. With AI, supply chain professionals can optimize order based on the factors such as inventory relocation and prioritization. This allows team to react quickly, save hundreds of hours spent collecting data and focusing on high-value work. The supply chain has evolved into a network of hundreds of suppliers, subcontractors, and distribution centers distributed around the world. No matter how small turmoil, it can have the dramatic sympathetic impact on the global supply network. Yes.
So, for the last part of the presentation, we introduced a variety of conferences with different jobs, such as doctors and flight attendants. So, with this multi-perspective response, I'm sure we'll get some ideas on how to improve our situation better. So, let's continue. All right, thank you all for your reports. For our next part of All right, thank you all so much for your reports. For our next part of the presentation, we interviewed a variety of audience with different jobs, such as doctors and flight attendants. So with these multi-perspective responses, I'm sure we'll get some ideas on how to improve our current situation. So let's get to that part. Well, hello everybody. Today we have a special guest join in our discussion of the global supply chain in the context of the epidemic. Let's welcome Jay Lovern. So Jay, we are living in some crazy time right now. Being a flight attendant, how much has COVID-19 affected your life?
It's affected me pretty severely. I'm actually currently not working right now due to infection rate and like the lack of people going out and traveling. There's not really space for me left at my job. In order for my company to stay open, they've asked as many of us to take as much time off as we need. So it's affecting me pretty severely. I'm no longer doing I'm still a flight attendant, but not working currently.
Right. So as employees of Delta Airline, what's their stance or policy on this issue? Like, I know wearing a mask is mandatory now to be on flights, but does that mean Delta provides you with these supplies like masks and sanitizers?
So actually, if you don't bring a mask, you can't go. I'm kidding. No, they're extremely serious about it. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but they made it mandatory that all passengers have to wear a mask. And if you do not have a mask, they are able to supply you with one, although it is heavily suggested that you bring your own supplies.
Okay. That's interesting. So where would you go to get these supplies? Like, is it hard to get them for you?
I think it really depends on kind of like where you live. more populated places without so many resource outlets, pharmacies and stuff, they're going to have a harder time. I noticed that the grocery stores, pharmacies near my apartment tend to be out of things more frequently than my parents' apartment, or home rather, that's just 10 minutes south. But it does make a challenge to gain accessibility to these items. We do revert to online sales. However, as you see with like Amazon right now, it may take a while for your package to get here just because of logistics and trying to keep things as safe and sanitary as possible.
Right. So Delta doesn't provide you other than like the necessary like single ones on the flight. So they don't like, here are like a box of masks that
They're, you know, I probably know some flight attendants that are happy to do that, but it's probably they try to minimize as much giving out those items as possible because, of course, they're resources that are pretty valuable right now. They do give you sanitation wipes, and you can ask for more of those. They're pretty generous with those. So yeah.
So what do you think about like the anxious buying and stocking up on supplies? What do you think of that?
It personally drives me crazy. You know, I think that there's nothing wrong. I remember I was in high school, we had some gas epidemic, and my teacher was like, you know, I have a half tank, but of course I'm going to go home and fill up. And he said that he would do that regardless. Is it out of fear? That's a pretty $1 million question. I would say buy what you need, use what you must, and share what you can.
Right. Would you personally stock up on anything? I'm guessing no.
You know, Nutella. I went to the grocery store 3 weeks in a row, and there was no Nutella, so I might buy two jars next time it's there.
That's very reasonable. Okay, so well, as we may all know, nowadays supermarkets and grocery stores actually have like a limited numbers of certain items that you can buy, such as Lysol sprays. What else? Toilet papers.
Ground beef.
What's up?
Ground beef.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, do you think that's an effective way of resolving the problem of daily supply shortage?
I don't know if you want me to go, how deep you want me to go here. It's kind of like putting the plastic thing on top of a Tylenol cap to stop overdoses. It's like, have you done something? Yes. Does it work? No. But we have this illusion that it's working. Because I can buy one roll of toilet paper today, come back, buy the next roll the next day, and do that and still be hoarding. So I think incremental, maybe. I think if you wanted to really moderate, anytime you had an item that was scarce, maybe when you scan it, the barcode triggers that you enter your driver's license number or something. Similar to when you buy like Advil cold and sinus, you have to present your driver's license, and it kind of keeps track of when the next time you can buy it. That would work.
Really smart, yeah. I think that's a great idea. I noticed an interesting phenomenon that while this is happening, like the restrictions on daily supplies that you can purchase, there actually aren't necessarily like a restriction on purchasing medical supplies such as masks and gloves and thermometers, stuff like that. So, do you think there should be a restriction on these things? Will it solve the problem of shortage of medical supplies?
I don't. Man, you kind of got my brain going right now. In all types of, I'm not a huge conspiracy person, but so like I know that my store around me, no proper names, but they limit thermometers, which is interesting. I would hope that you wouldn't need more than one thermometer. I could understand the extremists that have one thermometer per person. Maybe they don't have faith in their cleaning supplies. But you know, it's kind of like I bought some masks off a guy off the street the other day, you know, because I couldn't find them at the store. I didn't know how much the mask normally costs. He could have been charging me an extortionary amount. I just needed mask. So I think that if you start limiting medical supplies, I think it's going to promote more behavior like that, of people opening their own shops, of unregulated items that people are paying a lot of money for as if they're getting the real thing, and they're getting knockoffs that aren't actually helping them in regards to their health maintenance.
That's true. Yeah, so if you could change or add one thing about the policies right now regarding to purchasing these supplies, what would you change or add? I know you already gave like the driver's license identification thing. Is there anything else?
Honestly, didn't realize how smart that was when I said it, but I feel like it's a system that's already in place, so it would be easy to implement. All you have to do is put the barcode in your system. Other than that, ignore your friends, ignore your family. Nah, I'm kidding.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was valuable information for our project. Thank you for participating.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Keep climbing.
Hi everyone, this is Justin, and our project is focused on the supply chain, and we were focused on the cooperation, disaster capitalism, such as the prioritization of medical supplies, as well as supply price increase and unqualified products. And today we are lucky have a very special guest, Dr. Wang, who is named KJ. Hi KJ.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good.
So today I have two questions to want to ask you about the Corona-19 crisis. So what do you think about the medical supply chain of the United States?
So in generally speaking, I think compared to other countries, like some of the countries who responded well to coronavirus, like Korea, South Korea, Singapore, maybe Taiwan, United States medical supply, I think we're not short of medical supply per se, but I think that we're not well prepared. So the medical supply has not been readily distributed to different parts of the country, and to be readily to be dispersed and utilized in hospitals and in hospitals and healthcare workers. So I think we have a lot of work in that area and a lot of improvement to make. Me personally, I work in a small community hospital. We have not been affected as much. Number one, because we don't get too many coronavirus cases. So we have ample amounts of medical supply and personal protective equipment. But that is not to say for places that will hit it much harder, like New York State and maybe even California.
Yeah, that's correct. So in this case, compared with the other countries, what do you think American how they can improve these situations in the future?
Yeah, so it's a difficult question to answer because every country is different, right? If you take example for China, China is more of an authoritarian kind of country. The government says something and everybody does it. United States here, there's different state rights and it's a bigger country, it's more of a democratic country. So I think there's a couple of steps that we can take to improve the situation. It's not going to be perfect, but number one, I think it was a mistake for the current executive branch administration to disband the pandemic response team.
Right.
So I think we need to reinstate that. Number two, I think we should have the medical supplies ready. We have a stockpile of these medical supplies. I think they should be more readily available to the different states, and we need to be more ready for a pandemic like this in the future. And we should also have different, maybe even private companies and different manufacturers produce medical supplies so that we have enough of them until, in the event that another pandemic like this hits in the future. The United States has almost 370 million people. It's a bigger country, so it's a little bit more difficult to implement. Like for example, maybe you take Taiwan, it's a smaller country, or South Korea. So I don't think you can directly compare apples to apples in that situation. I think you have to look at, but I think, the United States, definitely has a lot of work to do. I think we can get there, but right now we were just woefully underprepared.
But it's,
I think that we had the capability of ensuring every healthcare worker and hospital to have adequate amounts of medical supply. We just were too behind. We couldn't act fast enough to get these supplies to the different workers and different hospitals throughout the states.
great. All right. Thank you, KJ.
Okay.
Well, I am Dr. Justine Belfi, and I am the owner of Goodland Chiropractic in Goleta, California. And today, Damon is interviewing me about some questions related to COVID-19 and its effects on the global economy here and the ability to get resources. So, question 1, go ahead.
So, question 1, do you think it is harder for you to get medical supplies such as medical masks and medical gloves?
Yes, I have noticed that since probably 2 months now, maybe 2.5, it has been really challenging to find nitrile gloves, which we do need here at the practice. Luckily, my friend was able to acquire several packages of masks. Otherwise, I would not have had disposable masks for my clinic here until patients started making handmade masks. But otherwise, getting any type of equipment and hand sanitizer, any of those things, has been nearly impossible.
Okay. So do you see a dramatic increase for the price of those?
I can't even
stuff?
find them.
Okay.
So I'm sure if you can finally find them, the prices are going to be going up. I know hand sanitizer's gone up. I've not been able to even locate masks. My friend was able to send them to me that he was able to find. So, but they are going up in price. I find just demand is harder. I can't even find a supplier.
So do you find any quality?
Yes, because I feel like when people can't get the products that they normally would, then it opens up more wiggle room for lower quality goods to sneak into the market because it's such high demand. So then you're left to get anything is better than nothing.
Okay. So for the third question, the COVID-19 pandemic in the US has made the trade deficit between China and the US even worse. What do you think it is the reason that US ended up in this kind of situation?
I think that our relationship with lots of other countries have gone through peaks and valleys, and it seems that with the current state of politics in the last couple of years, I don't want to completely blame Trump, but I do feel like with his presidency, it does seem that there's been a shift in our relationship with China. And I don't even know that we all the way know what it really means, but I have seen that there's a shift, and I think people are starting to talk more and more. I hear people talking about buying American-made products. And so I think that what we're going to find is that we're going to try to start utilizing different resources from home as opposed from buying them international. But I think that we're very in the hole to China, and it's not going to get better without some change, which means at some point we have to stop buying all their stuff from them. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for any gap to be filled. So I think first we're going to see a shift in trying to just buy American-made products. But I think that's going to be very hard to do because we don't make anything anymore, and our trade schools are not inundated. They need to be in order for us to then actually make all the stuff ourselves.